A very warm welcome to my channel Grow Joyfully. This is Meena here. I have already shared with you 13 videos about how I do vermicomposting at home joyfully in urban context in a small scale. I plan a 3-part video on interesting facts about worms. This is the first in the 3-part series. Earthworms are Mother Nature's adorable creatures. They are workhorses that convert organic garbage into black gold, bursting with nutrition for the plants. Many people tell me that they have faced big failures while doing vermicomposting at home, probably because 1 or 2 points were overlooked. When we breed the earthworms in-house, we need to understand very clearly their requirements in terms of food, ambience and shelter. We need to align with these Mother Nature's guidelines and we need to follow them, apply them diligently. Then we are always rewarded consistently with black gold and increase in population of the earthworms, batch after batch. This has been my experience in the last 5 years. So I'm going to present the worm facts and link each of them to the 3 dimensions here, the food, ambience and shelter. I've done a lot of research in this area and I'm recording my knowledge and experience here. Hope you find this portion very useful. So, starting from this video, I will chunk and present the worm facts. So here comes the first set. Like humans, worms take in oxygen and let out carbon dioxide. But they do not have lungs. They breathe through their skin. The oxygen in the air spontaneously moves through the worm's skin into the blood vessels present inside the worm's body. But for this oxygen diffusion to happen, the worm's skin has to be moist. That is why we say the worm bedding has to be moist and damp all the time. Good air circulation is very essential inside the worm bedding. The worms release carbon dioxide out, and this carbon dioxide needs to exit out of the bin. If carbon dioxide buildup happens inside the bin, it will deprive the worms of oxygen. And that is why in your worm bin, you have to ensure that there are plenty of holes. Also, never fill the bedding till the rim of your bin. Leave some space on top, at least 20%. What happens when there is excess moisture? Say the bedding becomes dripping wet. Extremely wet bins can become so compacted that airflow is hampered. And the oxygen-starved worms will suffocate, drown and die. They do not know swimming. So it is extremely crucial that the worm bedding is neither dry nor too wet. It should be like a fully wrung out sponge, maybe a little wetter than that. If you squeeze out, 1 or maximum 2 drops of water should fall. Earthworms do not have eyes, but they can sense light through their skin. The skin has got many natural light sensors. You would have noticed that earthworms try to stay out of sunlight because the heat from the sun will dry out their skin. So excessive exposure to light will lead to paralysis and death of the worms. So that's why we recommend always keep the bin in shade, cover the bedding with a cotton cloth to ensure complete darkness that the worms love. Most people don't like to touch the worms because the skin is slimy. But the fact is that earthworms hate our touching them. They get very stressed. Worms have sensitive nerves spread throughout their bodies that react violently to our touch. You would have observed the writhing movements when you try to pick up an earthworm by hand. It actually causes their muscles to contract. The human skin has got salt and that has dehydrating quality, which is toxic to the earthworms. So please avoid touching the worms as far as possible. Worms are also very sensitive to vibrations. Why? Because birds, moles and other worm predators, they create soil vibrations as they hunt. So all worms are very sensitive to vibration. Vibration actually causes a panic attack and worms will try to escape to an area which is free from vibration. And if they cannot flee, they panic and they eventually die of neural shock. So never place your worm bin near an air conditioning compressor, a clothes dryer or any such source of vibration. Most worm species thrive a lot happily eating and mating when the bin temperature is between 12 and 26 degrees Celsius. When we talk about temperature, there are two factors here: the temperature within the bin and the temperature in the surroundings. Bin temperature is more important, but ambience temperature can actually heat up the bin in summer, especially when the bin is made up of plastic. To give an example, in India, we have heat waves in peak summer. And in places like Delhi and northern India, it can even be a cold wave in winter. Extreme weather conditions are very harsh and unacceptable to the worms, and they try to escape. While we do not have control over ambient temperature, we do have control over the bin temperature. What happens when the temperature is extreme, either too high or too low? The worms tend to eat less. They go a little lethargic. So especially in winter, they go into an hibernation mode. So we should not overfeed. And they also mate less frequently. We just need to accept it. So they produce less cocoons, and cocoon hatching is also reduced. The cocoons may survive freezing temperatures in winter, but they may remain dormant, and later they hatch. Caring for worms in hot weather is an exercise in natural air conditioning. The hottest temperature can kill off an entire worm population if we do nothing about it. There are definitely some measures which we can take. Take the bin and shift it where the worms get the maximum amount of shade during the hottest part of the day. If you have an air conditioned room, you may consider even keeping the bin inside the room for a few hours. Keep a wet piece of cloth on the surface and keep spraying it with ice cold water, if required even twice a day. This is what I do in peak summer in India. You may even plan to toss some water cubes. You may keep a bottle which is filled with ice cubes, or even an ice pack. If you live in areas where it's predominantly hot during the entire year, consider using blue worms or African night crawlers instead of the common red wiggler worms, because these are adapted to tropical climates and they will survive heat wave much easier without becoming sick or dying off. Worms tend to slow down and get sluggish when the heat is very high, and hence reduce or stop feeding them, and they can sustain themselves until it is cool again. The extra food will just sit in the bin. It may heat up the bin, or it may cause problems with disease organisms. Also, ensure that the bin has got good air circulation. Ensure that the holes in the bin are not blocked by the bedding material, and ensure that there is good air circulation within the bin also. In your area, if the temperature falls below 10 degrees Celsius in winter, you may take the following measures. Keep the bin in shade or heated location. Ensure that it has less exposure to cold winds. Also, you may keep the lid on, but of course you have to take care that there are no problems of rats or lizards entering in. You can also try a heat source like an incandescent light focused on the bin. Even a 7-watt night light can add just the right amount of heat in order to keep the bin from freezing. And if you are using a light, add a worm bin blanket or newspaper so that the worms are in the dark. You may also consider giving insulation for your bin using straw bales, blankets, used carpet, or even bubble wrap. But we have to ensure that we leave gaps so that fresh air can flow into the bin through the air holes. What happens when 90% of the bedding is gone? Then you will see that the worm bin is full of the castings only. Worms do not like to live with their poop only. They would rather die. So we need to take some measures immediately. We can remove the castings regularly from the surface every week when we feed the worms. That's one choice. Or we can add more bedding. This is what I do in this tub that I'm using. I add one top-up bedding before I do the harvest. Third is plan the harvest immediately if you find that the brown matter is gone mostly. Harvest the castings fully. Worms can live only in a neutral ambience. They die when the bedding becomes acidic. How do you know the bedding has become acidic? Whenever you open the bin, just stay alert to the smell that is emanating from the bin. If it is an earthy smell, then there are no issues. Even if you get a slight vinegar smell, that means the bin has become a little acidic. And if you are getting a foul smell or a rotten smell, then there is a serious issue, because worms consume the acidic food. Then they come to the surface, they will get deformed, and they will eventually die. And that emanates a very rotten smell. Prevention is better than cure, and to keep the bin alkaline or neutral doesn't take much effort. We just need to avoid completely acidic foods, that is the rinse of all kinds of citrus fruits like oranges, lemons, lime, pineapple, large amount of tomatoes. These are strict no for feed. Second is, do not overfeed the worms at all. Before adding the feed, always check that they have eaten the last feeding to the extent of 90%. And even though we say worms love coffee grounds, use only in moderation. A handful for this tub once a month will do. If you detect vinegar smell or foul smell, it's time to take action immediately. Add pulverized eggshell powder once a month to the bedding. That's one measure. Always ensure that the bin is aerated. You may fluff up the bedding to increase air circulation. You may also add some fresh bedding in order to neutralize the acidity. In the next video, I'll be sharing some more worm facts and how to apply them diligently. Thank you for watching my video. Have a great day.